let's start with something that's developed just southwest of here, down in Waynesville. On Monday, the first ever Gay Pride event was held on post at Fort Leonard Wood. Command Sergeant Major Teresa King spoke at a luncheon about her journey coming out and living openly as a gay soldier in the U.S. Army. Some would say that's news. It's not that long ago such an event held on a military post would have been illegal. Others would say, though, that there are diversity events held all the time, celebrating one group or another, and as a result, this one didn't deserve any more attention than any other. We're about to get into the weeds talking about some of what went on there, but I want to start by asking, would you both consider this to have been a newsworthy event, something to cover?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. This was a first-of-a-kind event. It was happening, as you mentioned, on a military base. So, in any newsroom, what you're doing is you're looking at all of the stories that you have to cover in a day. This one would rise, particularly if that were in my direct geographical area, to a pretty high level.
I completely agree. It's a first of its kind. Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed only three years ago. And precisely because this is not in San Francisco makes it newsworthy.
Okay, well then we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit more in detail now that I think, are all in agreement. We each would have sent a reporter, sent a crew, gone forward and covered that. Let me tell you about a situation that developed for one Pulaski County newspaper publisher and caught the attention of the regional and national press. Daryl Todd Marina is the publisher of the Pulaski County Daily News. He covers stories of interest to people in and around Waynesville, both on post and off. And last week, a question posed to him by an aspiring journalist who identifies as lesbian about whether he'd cover the Gay Pride event at Fort Leonard Wood turned into, well, a thing. That's because of this public Facebook response to the inquiry, which says promoting gay pride in Pulaski County, this isn't San Francisco. The post caught the attention of many. Nearly 1,200 commented. Stories appeared in several gay press websites and in the Riverfront Times, a St. Louis-based blog. Marina told me via Facebook chat yesterday that on the face of it, he didn't think the event warranted coverage. There wasn't going to be any kind of debate of any policy. It was going to be a gathering of like-minded people sharing lunch with a keynote speaker. And he didn't want to be seen as promoting a gay pride event that he didn't think his readership would be receptive or responsive to it. With Marina's permission, I have shared that Facebook chat with both of you, with Amanda and with Jim, and you've had a chance to look through it. Having said that, having heard a little bit more of his side of the story, is this a miscommunication between two people that blew up on Facebook, or is it something more?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think it's you have to be mindful that when you're sharing information, you're having a conversation on social media. That is not a private conversation, and it's probably never going to be a private conversation. So I think that very much is the case. I think the other thing is that I don't think he expected that this social media post was going to blow up in the way that it did. And at least in looking at the transcript of the conversation that you did share with us with his permission, it seemed to me that he was backtracking a little bit. I will say this, in that conversation, he made some very good points about what is applicable to his readership. I think that news does vary a bit on a weekly newspaper versus a daily, based on your staffing, based on what's going on, based a bit on your audience. That having been said, he had an opportunity here to really enlighten his audience that is very close to this military base on an issue that is of national import, and he had an opportunity to bring that to his local paper and to his local readership in a way that informed and educated, and I think he missed that opportunity.
And also, this didn't have to be a big piece. I mean, the point being that, there was no debate. It was more of like a press kind of situation. And I don't know why that would prohibit 200, 300 words. Moreover, when has a newspaper man ever shied away from controversy? Isn't that like a core news value? If you're going to get people's blood pressure up, isn't that a good thing? And make people aware of what's going on, even if they disagree with it?
Well, I would agree with that right there. His whole point was, at least as I interpreted it, that he didn't think his readers would want to or be interested in reading it. Therefore, he wasn't going to initially make a big deal out of covering it. He did end up going to the event on Monday. But I think part of the question that I would ask is, and Jim, you started to touch on this, sometimes as journalists and as gatekeepers, do we have a responsibility to make sure that there's an even balance of news diet there. Maybe the idea of sometimes spinach or Brussels sprouts don't taste good, but there's a place for that within the product we provide to our readers, our listeners, and our viewers.
Absolutely. That's our role in the democracy, is to tell people what is going on, to inform them so that they can make, good decisions in their lives. Now, the other question is, and he brought this up, is were other media there? Are other media being held accountable in the same way he is and his paper is? I think with the Facebook discussion, he brought the attention to himself, and with that sort of inflammatory post about San Francisco, he brought it to his door. And his point of, I'm going to see if there are other people covering this and then I'll decide, that to me, it kind of made me question his editorial gut. If you're just going to look around and see if anyone else is doing it and that's how you decide, that's a problem to me.
That being said, yeah, I mean, I think the question does have to be asked, did the television stations that were within reach also see this as the opportunity to cover a first-of-its-kind event? And I think this is a problem that a lot of newsrooms make, is that they don't understand the ramifications of a story such as this and how it might impact their viewership, their usership, whatever you want to call it. And so I agree with Amanda that it was the social media post that took this over and above, not just the fact that he did or did not cover.
Well, and by all indications, that area in Pulaski County is part of both the mid-Missouri television market that we're in here with KOMU, KMIZ, and KRCG, and also down in Springfield. And by all indications, it appears none of the 6 television stations that serve those areas were there.
So everybody missed that story.
Everybody missed that story.
And whether they did it deliberately or not, we don't know,
right,
because it didn't post on Facebook about that decision.
Okay.